I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Tyler, supported by
I'll support.
Scott to approve the minutes from the October 16 meeting. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item is opportunity for general public comment. This is an opportunity to ask any questions, express any concerns regarding non-public hearing items and issues not on the agenda. Is there anyone out there who wish to offer any comments along those lines? Nope. So seeing none, we'll move forward. First case is case 18-811, City of Grand Rapids Compost Yard, 2151 Butterworth Drive, site plan amendment. Received approval recently, and proposed site plan amendment involves a replacement of 3 70 by 70 storage buildings with 4 65 by 75 buildings, along with right around 9.2 acres of organic waste and compost. Again, 2125 Butterworth, and could I have Planning Director Dan Power please start out the discussion.
Yep, thanks for the intro, Terry. Just to give a little bit of background, this is a land use that's for yard waste recycling. We went over how that is interpreted as an essential service for the region, even though it's primarily targeted to the City of Grand Rapids residents. This was identified as a ideal location for this service by the City of Grand Rapids, and it's been used this way for a long time. So we've kind of boxed this whole land use into the essential services category, and in some cases that doesn't warrant a site plan review. In this case it does, because it's on a residentially zoned lot or a agriculturally zoned lot, and it's involves the construction of buildings. So that's the backdrop to why we had a site plan review in the first place. And when you have a site plan review, if you're bringing in new buildings or moving buildings significantly, we always need to amend the approval for that site plan. So that's really what this proposal is all about, and that relates to our next case as well. It's just good practice to make sure the Planning Commission has a chance to review and validate what's going on the site, what's proposed to change on the site when they've already had an approved site plan recently. So the scope of impact here is roughly the same as it was before. The land use is the same as it was before. Yard waste recycling, no organic compost or the sort of the smelly kind that we are concerned about for potential future use. We're just talking about yard debris, vegetative materials, and the area is the same. There is a new staging area for some equipment, but otherwise the building pad footprint area is in the same location as it was before. The only difference is that there's an addition of one building, roughly the same area as the 3 buildings that were there before, and just one more building in the same place in tighter quarters together. So the setback is roughly the same. The relationship to the roadway is roughly the same. I recommend going ahead and conditionally approving this with the same conditions that were imposed on the project in August. And I think the applicant's engineer is here if you have any questions for him.
Scott? Scott Connors, City Engineer, any comments to offer?
Nothing from us.
Okay. Well, this is not a public hearing, so it's a matter we won't have any hearing of sorts, but we will ask the applicant to come forward and provide an overview from your standpoint on this project.
Thank you. My name is Dan Westenberg, and I'm representing the client. I'm with Progressive Architects Engineers. As Dan Powers stated, the buildings are changed in size from 70 by 70 to 65 by 60, and we're just adding one more in the same location. And the type of building is still the same. It's still basically a hoop structure, and there was an exhibit that showed what those buildings will look like. Dan, would you be able to scroll to that? We just received engineering drawings from the, for the submittal, for the shop drawings for that. And there's a two-part submittal for that. Engineering drawings for the foundation. There's the exhibit of it down the bottom there. That's what those buildings will look like. There'll be 3 doors on one side and 3 doors on the other, with one man door on either side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any conversation?
Would the conditions be the same as the last time?
Correct. Consistent with it, just with the notation of the change in the number of buildings. I would offer that in driving out to the site, that Butterworth Street is in pretty rough shape. It's evident it gets a lot of construction traffic, and that's about it. But,
There's a lot of soil, silt, and sediments that go on the road from all the operations along there too. It's bad. I wish they would do something about it, but that's not part of this project.
yeah, correct.
That's the number one complaint I hear in that area. The road is just awful.
We alluded a little bit last time about the opportunity for our citizens to be involved, and I don't know if that got anywhere. I was out there today, and it'd just be so nice if people, the way you've got it set up, they drive in there and they dump their stuff, and there's a guy there, and he runs right out of there and wants to know what you're doing there. And I told him I was on the planning commission, and then, I don't know, he wasn't real impressed, but anyway, he let me drive around. But I was kind of impressed with how it's a good place to get rid of a lot of stuff. And it didn't look like stuff that shouldn't be there. It looked like waste and wood and a lot of leaves, obviously, this time of year. But I didn't know what involved letting our citizens, I mean, obviously, they should have a pass or something so they can get in there. Is that possible, or how far did we get on that?
Currently, the City of Grand Rapids residents are able to use that facility, and that's part of the benefit that it is to be in the City of Grand Rapids limits. I believe James Hurt would have to answer the question of allowing another municipality to have their residents to deposit yard waste or other there.
Yeah, Joe, I can tell you, it would probably have to be a financial agreement between the City of Grand Rapids and us, and that's a conversation that I'm looking to follow up on in the near future. But yeah, I don't think Progressive AE would have a lot of stake
So
in
it's
how that
been
would
looked
be
into.
set up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, it would be a benefit.
Otherwise,
Maybe I could show them a copy of my Grand Rapids income tax return.
That might help.
Strike that from the record.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other comments. Entertain a motion on the request.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion on case number 18-811. Motion for Grand Rapids Compost Facility at 2151 Butterworth Drive Southwest, amended site plan. I make a motion to approve the site plan as amended for the proposed compost facilities, specifically as proposed at 2151 Butterworth Drive Southwest in the city of Walker, subject to the following conditions and based on the findings of fact noted below. Conditions of final area site plan approval. The applicant agrees to all conditions noted in the planning director's letter dated 10/30/2019. Findings of fact per section 94-5 and 94-116. Conditions regarding architecture, landscaping, setback, enclosures, and other conditions have been imposed as are appropriate to protect the adjacent future parks and recreation corridor and nearby residential lots.
Support.
Okay, a motion by Tyler, supported by Pat, for approve the proposed site plan. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is case number 17-775, Gerald R. Ford Council, Boy Scouts of America, 3213 Walker Avenue. There was a public hearing in October of 2017 to conditionally approve development on this site under a special exception use permit and site plan review. What we have before you this evening is a consideration of an approval of an amended site plan to relocate the climbing tower approximately 530 feet northeast of the originally proposed location. Dan, again, as planning director, could you introduce this request, please?
Sure. I thought what I had here, yes, there it is. So there's an image of the location under consideration. So the way this is written warrants a little bit of explanation. My part, I think it warrants telling the story of where we were in 2017 and how we got to where we are. This is a project that has many moving parts and a lot of recreational programming, and I think that's sort of the spirit of what the Boy Scouts are doing, and something that we all understood when this was reviewed over the past couple of years. A lot of improvements to the building here, the main building for the regional Gerald Ford Boy Scouts Council, as well as to the site itself to have more camping through these yurt facilities, more educational programming, this climbing tower. And here lies the confusion or somewhat of the problem that's come up over the last few weeks. When this plan was reviewed by the Planning Commission a couple of years ago, a lot of these things were kind of laid out in a conceptual format of where they would be on the site as the site developed. There was an approved plan, a conditionally approved plan, that showed a lot of these things where they made sense at the time, and the building commenced, the building inside of the main facility and then the building on the site. And the building permits issued on the site were broken out into various phases. And if you recall from the original plan, there wasn't a lot of detail, but there was an indication that there would be a future climbing tower right adjacent to the back of the sort of the exterior deck area, and then overlooking the kind of the hill sloping down to Indian Mill Creek on the west side of the built portion of the site. Well, field conditions were reassessed. The Boy Scouts, for probably good reason, found that that was kind of right on the fringe of what would be floodplain and wetland areas, so they thought to move the tower uphill. Building permit was submitted based on more or less the structure and the structural integrity and the engineering of the tower itself. The building official reviewed that, got approved, but there was not a site plan adjustment to validate what happened there. So lo and behold, the tower was constructed uphill without an amended site plan, and it's now almost near completion. So here we have a situation where it's a little challenging because we're kind of sort of walking you through our request for forgiveness rather than permission, but it is the kind of thing that is a bit of a field change that warrants some flexibility and some creativity. So just like with the last plan you just looked at for the Butterworth facility, this is a change that's made after monitoring field conditions and relocation of a building that was originally proposed, or a structure that was originally proposed. And you're looking at the new location on this plan. If you've driven to the site, you see where it is. So this is a request for a change that's already been made in the field, but just to validate the site plan as amended. The concerns I note with something like this are sort of the relationship to the lot line. Are we still adhering to setbacks? The answer appears to be yes. We're still 30 feet back from the side lot line, so that's a big, important benchmark to meet. Is this still safely constructed? There was a structural engineer that submitted plans with the building permit application that we have here. So the building official has verified that. And is it safely accessible to our public safety officials? That's still true. And in fact, our fire department has indicated they prefer this location because it's a little bit more accessible. It's a lot more accessible. On the flip side of that, it's a lot more accessible because it's uphill and it's right by a parking area. That parking area doesn't belong to the Boy Scouts. It actually belongs to the neighboring Greenstone office building. So that has invited some concern from the neighbors and from staff that here you have parking that lends you to think it's next to the parking for that particular feature, but there needs to be a way to route people around that so you're not having people park at the office site going to the tower. So that's a workaround that may require some additional field adjustments like wayfinding signage perhaps, at the same time allowing security fencing around the feature so people aren't jumping up there and getting to the tower easily, but while still allowing Knox box access to the fire department through a secured gate. So there are a lot of components to this. It appears to be the only significant field change of all the things that were on the original plan as approved. But here we are catching up, getting up to speed here, but I want to make sure the Planning Commission has a chance to get their comments, concerns on the record, and to review this project with the Boy Scouts. Last thing I'll note, another sort of elephant in the room, it's a pretty stark structure. It's 45 feet tall. It is what I would consider very irregularly occupied, and it's sort of recreational in nature, consistent with the spirit of what we reviewed a couple of years ago, and it's not really a surprise that it is that tall. It just looks a little stark next to that property line. So while there is a 35-foot height limit for occupied buildings in the PSP zoning district and for principal uses, this is really not a building in that sense. It's really more of a recreational structure that I think has some leniency we can apply to it. So that being said, I encourage you to ask why the change was made, what can be adjusted in the field to make sure the right people are accessing that site and the right people are sort of veered away from that site. Based on the comments in the packet, Aaron Gett from the Boy Scouts is here. He wanted to reach out and provide some additional clarification. One is just, this is survey work showing that there is a 36-foot separation from the edge of the tower to the lot line. This shows from the edge of the drive to the climbing tower is 55 feet. So there's some benchmarks here that show sufficient setback based on that 30-foot side yard setback primarily, but also that this won't fall into if it were to fall, it would fall into a driveway or there's no structures in that area either. Another thing that was shared was just an email indicating kind of the nature of how the structure is used and that it's really not a principal building or a building in the conventional sense. It's more of a intermittently used feature on the site. Obviously not really intended to be occupied for a long time, more intended to be climbed on or called upon as a recreational feature. So sort of validating that it's not a tower, a structure in the sense that it needs to be regulated from a height standpoint as strictly. That is all the new information we got.
We've got a memo that's in file from the last time around, all those conditions should still apply.
Well, at this point, if we could have the applicant approach the podium, give your name, address, and affiliation, and
Hi, good evening. I'm Aaron Gatch, CEO of the Boy Scouts of America here in West Michigan.
Richard Mikey, I'm a volunteer with the Boy Scouts. What would you like to know?
okay. Any questions?
How many of you, I have a question if you don't mind. How many of you have been out there and seen the climbing tower? Partially, yeah. The majority of you, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
So you're familiar with, obviously it is not 100% completed, but it will be soon.
My biggest concern was the security of it. I'm on a board of a camp that has a climbing tower, and what I saw in the letter today that Dan said about the 12 feet up and everything is kind of put that to rest for me, so, thank you.
For those who don't know, the first 12 feet of that climbing tower is totally enclosed. It's only accessed through one locked man door, so you can't get inside of it without permission. And then we have a 8-foot security fence that will enclose our entire site and that tower.
Yeah, I would just reemphasize Dan's point that very shortly after the site plan approval, when we started to get into constructability of the different features on the property, putting that structure in or near the floodplains or wetlands quickly became a no-go, and getting it to higher ground, more accessible to the drive for safety reasons, quickly became something that the committee evaluated, and we're hopeful this new location works for everybody. We do have the Knox locks on order per the fire inspector, the types of locks he wants to use on the gates to have access at the front and the back of the property. So that's kind of an update since last time we were here. We're just really hopeful that the whole site being open to the public adds value to the city and to the region as something unique. And again, we're just proud to be in Walker, and I'm super excited and proud to continue to have the partnership with this commission to let such an innovative and unique project that doesn't really exist anywhere in Michigan or in the region continue to move forward here in Walker.
Yeah, I think it's, as we look back to the original approval and the features that you're adding to this facility, you're making good use of that floodplain, wetland area. It's a very positive improvement, and just having to go through this process here to validate the change in location. You've given some reasons why in terms of why it was relocated. I think it's important that any action we take, we would perhaps reference the supplemental information we received today that further addresses, as Tyler pointed out, the security concerns, safety concerns associated with it.
Absolutely, yeah. We're probably just as concerned, if not more, about our security and safety of the property and the features that are utilized there than anyone. And luckily, we have great volunteer teams working around the clock on not only our property, but on the protocols and standards the Boy Scouts of America brings to all of our properties across the country, and this one's no different.
Okay, at this point, if there's no other discussion, I hear a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Turn your mic on.
Sorry, I was after it. I make a motion to approve the site plan as amended dated 4/3/2019 to allow the relocation of a 45-foot climbing tower approximately 530 feet to the northeast of the originally proposed location, in addition to upgrades to the existing 16,500 square foot building and stage, walkways, a yurt campground, and overlook deck, and a variety of accessory educational and recreational buildings at the subject lot of 3213 Walker Avenue. Conditions of the final area site plan. Applicant agrees to the conditions noted in the planning director's letter dated 10/30 of 2019.
Jason, I sorry to interrupt, but this last findings of fact is more pertinent to an essential service use. And I apologize, that was more of a carryover. So feel free to state additional findings of fact, but those code references don't apply here. So I apologize for that.
So as an additional condition on this, I was also going to reference the city engineer's letter dated 26th of September of 2017. Does that need to be included in this also?
I think I embedded the original reports in my conditions in my letter, so I think I forgot.
Okay. And then referencing the BSA submittal dated the 6th of November 2019, which is the one on the screen currently.
Yes, that's the one. The one on the screen is actually even more recent, but it is an amendment to that plan that was submitted 10/6 of 19.
Have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, motion by Jason, supported by Steve to approve the site plan amendment as proposed with on noted conditions. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We hope to see y'all out there.
All the citizens of Walker are invited and have access to it, you know that. Pardon?
Will not be using the climate.
The zip line, yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item of the discussion topic, reclamation and end use of mineral mines.
Hey, thanks. This last little bit of the meeting is gonna be a little bit of improv, and I hope we're okay with that. I think I don't know how much you planning commissioners know, some might know more than others based on your experience, but about our mineral mining review board. Right now, we have 6 active mineral mine sites. This is kind of a general rundown of mineral mining in the state of Michigan. Very, very broadly, communities are obligated to find places where people can extract minerals from the ground. And we happen to have a lot of soil, and there was some gravel as well. That, for example, Millennium Park has some old gravel pit areas, but a lot of sand is available under the surface in Walker, especially when you get closer to the south part of town. And so we have 6 active mine sites right now. The Trick Pit, where we had the mini storage development a couple of years ago, and where Betts is expanding, was the 7th one. But as these sites become closer to mature in their operation, as they get closer to reclamation, I think it was Scott that might have said, as a member of the board, as they get near completion and closer to looking at how the site can be used after the fact, let's have somewhat of a partnership or synergy between the mine operators and you folks of the Planning Commission. This came to light last year with the mines up here of Koval and O'Brien. They are in the process of slowly completing their fill at that site so they can turn that site into a golf course. So that's one example of how these can be used, but there are other examples where I think I have the Cordis closed all this stuff down for some reason, but there's this is what the 731 Maynard Cordis site and use plan may look like. They've kind of stuck to their guns on this being a future low-density residential site. Apologize for the rough view here. It's oriented so Maynard is up on the top here, so it's kind of 90 degrees from what it actually looks like in the field, which is down here. So that's the Cordis site. You can sort of envision how that becomes single-family residential. There's the mine site over here that is gearing up to become golf course. So I guess I just want to sort of plant the seed and remind you folks that there are active mine operations, and as part of the master plan and as part of thinking of the future of these sites, and it's more the obligation of the Mineral Mining Board to make sure there's tracking toward a long-term goal that makes for a sustainable land use or a viable land use in the future. And that's kind of a general overview. Also, what you see me clicking around on is just trying to make the plans at the Mineral Mining Board, the records of their approvals, a little bit more accessible through this kind of live mapping. So with this tool that's sort of uploaded, not really publicized, you can sort of click around and find approved plans, slides, packet materials, minutes from the most recent Mineral Mining Review Board meeting, at least for this year. This is the kind of thing we have to update regularly, so if it is going to be published, it should be up to date and current, but this is a pretty good perspective of the most recent reviews we've had on this site if you click around on this map. Scott, I don't know, maybe with your long experience on the Mineral Mining Board, you want to have some thoughts on the importance of reclamation and viable future land use?
Maybe because this is improv, the Mineral Mining Board is made up of technical people, technical staff people, so it's a little bit awkward. It's the city engineer, public works director, planning director or community development director, and soil erosion officer. So we're staff people, we're technical people that go out and regulate and help people follow the rules. It's a lot different than this group. And so what we're doing at that group is we're also looking at land use, because when somebody comes in, we say, we want you to show us a map of what it looks like today, a map of how you're gonna mine it, a map of how you're gonna reclaim it, and then a map of what you're gonna use it for at the end, so that they don't just create a lunar landscape that's not worth anything anymore. That's where this all started, was people would come in and just take, and then they would leave behind a big scar. And so we're trying harder and harder, and I think as we try harder to tie the land use in, this group has to be tied in tighter to back us up. Because if somebody comes in and wants to change their mind, which has happened a couple of times, it makes me as a board member feel like a liar, you know, to all the people we've been telling, we're gonna make them toe the line, and then they come in one meeting and just change their mind. So it's important to get you guys involved.
How detailed are the plans that they give you? Do they show a perspective topo elevation of the site when it's completed?
If they do a good job.
I've been to a number of mineral mining meetings because of the Stanley Orchards mine is right behind our work, so we get called in, and they've been trying to sell us the land anyway. And they came in with one of the more detailed reports or proposals that I've seen, and it's all laid out from phase 1 to 2 to 3, and the reclamation, and then what they want to do with it is industrial park, which edge matches to some of it really well. So I've been impressed with, you guys have really clamped it down over the last years, because the trick pit was such a disaster, if you want to call it that. But
And I think yours is a really good example, because we want to make sure that if they say they're going to dig down to, let's say, elevation 600, they don't go down to elevation 550 and then just fill 50 feet back up with junk that's left over, because you can't do anything on top of that junk. And so with some of the newer mines, we've been able to require density testing and things, so that if somebody wants to come in, they have good virgin soil to get down to with foundations. We don't have to worry about structural integrity. But on some of the old ones, people would get carried away, and you'd come back a year later and they'd be really deep, and they'd say, we're sorry, we'll do better next year. And then they'd come back and be even deeper the next year, and there was just no way to clamp it down.
whatever else.
Just end off the pipe.
Yeah. So it fits into transportation networks, really fits into transportation networks. I mean, you'll see that with the one on 3 Mile Road. You saw that with the trick pit, how critically important that was, and in the end, I think we kind of lost that one. But it'll pop up on others too. I think one really cool one that's going to come up very soon is the Shoemaker Pit along Wilson, where it started out where the master plan there was going to be for some baseball fields.
Oh, yeah. That was a long time
Way
ago.
back when. The more recent master plan was for kind of a ravine, a valley that had a line of residential development through that would connect Burton all the way down to Wilson, provide redundancy, probably some looping for a water main system, a whole lot of good planning stuff that results from the completion of the mining activity.
Yeah, so I'm really glad we're having this discussion, just because Scott, you were at our strategic planning thing, but this is something that I've been doing a lot of thinking about, because we do have all these mine sites, and we're doing a lot of future planning lately, especially at our level at the city commission and also at the planning commission. So I have a question on the mineral mining part, because we also talk about this a lot at my day job. How much ability to regulate this stuff do we have as a municipality, especially in terms of the reclamation and things like that? Like how enforceable are the discussions that we have at this level?
Generally, I think we have a lot of leeway with design standards and standards for restoration of the site. We don't have much leeway in terms of the use itself.
Okay.
If there's a mineral in the ground, we have to allow for its extraction, generally speaking. Maybe some other people with some experience with this can chime in too, but I think we have a lot of leeway to say how we want the site to be restored, and that it's a viable path forward to the future.
And we've had good I guess that's worked well for us in terms of like getting the sites back to the condition that we need them in.
We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about, laying some other groundwork and layers of rules, like the fact that you can only undercut up to 5 feet.
Right.
Because, you know, there's still good sand, they want to go get it. And I think sometimes they feel like it's their God-given right to go down and get that sand, but, you know, it's also their responsibility to leave behind a piece of property that still has value.
Right.
So some things like that we've learned from that we've done a great job on the more recent mines, and we're just trying to catch up on some of the olders.
It also matters if the owner is concerned about what's left behind. The trick pit had an absentee owner, and the mine operator just did what they felt, and the owner didn't really care.
Right, and Stanley Orchards has an owner that's involved, because it's a family-owned thing, and they want to make it every dollar after they get done mining, which would be, like industrial would be great for that area. So they're really concerned about keeping it right, and the entrance and egress to the site too is important to them, so.
And some of these present moments of opportunity, like the Millennium Park. You know, that's probably
Oh, yeah.
the shining example.
That bailed a lot of
right?
these people out.
Yeah, you know,
That was, yes.
gravel pits with no future
Yes.
end use, and just dig as deep as you can dig. And somehow we turned that into something fantastic. Not we, but as a region, we all did. So we're pretty lucky there. There's some others, like the Meekoff pit, that's over some existing gypsum mines where it's difficult to say what that's going to turn into because you can't put buildings there. You should expect sinkholes and things like that to occur. So we don't know for sure what that's going to look like. There's not really a good future land use or end use because there isn't an end use.
Do we know where the mines are?
There are some,
mines?
there are
We
some
have
maps.
Okay.
The difficult part is the structural geography, geology of all this and stuff. They're so deep. I think they're 500 or 600 feet deep, aren't they?
Oh, there's multiple layers.
Yeah,
Down a long
and so
way.
how does that impact on the cone on the way up? You know, and so it impacts a much bigger area than you think. It's not just the area that's underneath it, because
My kids had that.
failures can occur on.
Well, and the groundwater
Angles.
itself can be eroding the gypsum that's left, and the old mining records are not as good as the later ones.
There was a time where they were dewatering, pulling the water out.
Yes, yes.
Off and
yes.
on. Well, when you
Right
do it off and
across
on,
O'Brien, yep.
it's like washing something, you know, all of that material just kind of washes out. And they had a whole bunch of sinkholes and failure. So we just don't know the certainty down there. And the best thing that could probably happen would be some kind of park or some kind of golf course, where if there's a sinkhole, you just go fix it.
You can take a tour of some of these mines out in Wyoming, down in Wyoming, and I was shocked when my kids' school went to it. I was shocked at the length and the size of these tunnels that are just underground.
Yeah.
Empty.
Yeah, yeah.
And under Kentwood as well.
Yeah,
It's all the same gypsum deposit.
yeah, that is a line. You can see the mines as you drive through Kentwood.
They got the shaft is gone now.
Oh, is it?
Yep, filled it up.
So Dan, maybe one good thing we can do is provide an invite in February to those meetings, to the Planning Commission, and maybe we can hit on that future land use a little bit harder this year.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud.
Well, the other thing, and I don't know how many of you are paying attention to it, but the aggregate industry is working very hard to remove local control over aggregate mining.
I'm familiar.
Well, we're opposed to that.
Yeah.
Now,
Are you all aware of that, what's going on?
I wasn't, but if the state gets a hold of it, then we're
Well-
screwed.
Well, Aggregates has come through with a pretty ambitious goal of essentially setting a standard that would be the little permitting ability that we do have for the mining right now, where what's the term for the standard? It's harmful to like the site, extremely harmful, something like that. They would even remove that language so that essentially it's fully permissive to the mining industry. And they wouldn't have to go through any process with the locals. They would just say, we can mine. And that would be about the level of regulation that would be on the mining. And they're citing a study by MDOT. And you guys should do some research on this because the information that's come out about that study is pretty jarring. The Auditor General did a report on this, and the information that came out of that is worth the time to read because it's what we would call a problem case for the interaction between the the stakeholders and the department. So I don't want to get too far into it, but definitely take a look at the information that's come out about it.
The good news is though that we're almost done.
Yeah.
We don't have too many that could get sideways anymore. We're in pretty good hands
Yeah.
now.
Steve Versluis, 10 years ago, told me, don't worry about the mining because they're about done. That was about 10 years ago. And now they've, on one side of some land I own, you ought to see what it looks like. It looks like Iwo Jima. Really, it looks awful. And now they just cut out all the big trees, and it's bare. It looks awful. They come right up to, they got, what, 30 feet or something like that?
There's a 30-foot buffer, and then they're supposed to go down on a 1-on-5 slope, which is mowable, safe. You're not gonna roll out of control like some kind of comedy movie. But, some of these slopes are pretty tall,
Yeah.
and the restoration doesn't look very good for
Oh, it looks
a long
awful.
time.
Yeah.
It's awful.
So to Joe's point, these mines, it seems like they can go forever. Like they can mine at whatever pace they kind of want to, and it's
some that have-
Market driven, if there's no construction and we had the last decade, the mines basically didn't sell much product.
yeah.
There can be a moving target too, and we try to track the reclamation plans that they turn in with a realistic vision of that, meaning that they'll be done in a reasonable time frame. But there seems to be more and more mining done, and what we often find in the MMRB meetings is that the reality in the field is just nowhere close to what they said the reclamation plan would be. There can be severe undercutting. We get really good data from the mine operators about their existing topography, and we get good plans for reclamation, but there's often a big disconnect there that we're trying to catch up to, and I think we're more and more catching up on those disconnects, but we need to have realistic estimates from these operators every year, so something we're working on.
Last thing on that aggregates thing, I remembered the site that was the issue that kind of led to the study and all that. It's the Metamora site, if anyone's familiar with that. Do some research on that. It's really interesting.
Metamora, Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole study, Michigan Aggregate Association fed MDOT some information. Yeah, it's politics gone bad, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Well, I like Scott's idea. We can try to bring you guys more in the loop on the annual permitting cycle, especially because I think this February we'll have some turnover. I think the mines will be much closer to being done and hopefully shifting toward golf course construction next year. The Shoemaker site might be getting close as well, so we can try to make sure you're in the loop on those reviews.
I've often wondered about Shoemaker, especially because as deep as it is as you go, what impact does it have on the properties that front on Wilson Avenue? You see the beach erosion taking effect on Lake Michigan. Seemed like the same thing could hold true here.
Well, we've pushed pretty hard to make sure that when they go by one of those neighbors, that's restored immediately. Immediately being that year, because we only meet once a year.
Yeah.
And they've done a pretty good job out there. They've actually planted trees. You don't have to plant trees, but they've done that. They've planted trees. I know the Shoemaker family still hunts along the perimeter of that. They care about the property, and they have enough of a vision to know that there's value there when they're done. So,
Again, owner,
right.
ownership makes a big difference.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Good on mines?
Yep.
Okay, want me to jump to the last topic?
Yes.
This is again a bit of sort of freestyle method of discussion. Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
This is just a kind of a general update that since I've been here, the website for the city as a whole has really improved. There's always room for more improvement on a department by department basis, especially. And so much what we do in the community development department is spatial. And so this is more of just a heads up that we're working on some tools right now. I'm working on some tools, getting help from a web design standpoint from others, and getting some feedback from others in the department. But just to make our information more accessible. So as you probably have seen, if you've ever flipped through Unicode, it can be really verbose and difficult to navigate how how a zoning ordinance is constructed. And then linking zoning today to future land use tomorrow. Knowing more about your property and where you can do what, where you can build based on where your easements are, that can usually be a very long-winded search. So we're just trying to make more of this information accessible, and the idea is going to be to kind of shift what we have in at least on our website, to more of a kiosk approach where you can have a kind of a one-stop shop with a few different buttons that you can click to find out all of your information. And a lot of that can be done through sort of interactive mapping. So while none of this is really published to the web yet, I just want you folks to know, reach out to me if you have interest in having links to some of these maps that I shared on this memo. Just a few examples here. Recently kind of populated all of Walker's plats onto a live map, and if you click on most of these sites, although not all of them have plat data available from the state, but most of the plats across the state are uploaded onto LARA's website, and from there we can get links directly to these maps, which we've actually backed up on our iCompass system. So this is stuff that we're just going to have. So if you click where you live, you can find out. I'll go to a newer example because I bet there's not many easements in the Hanson's plat, but Ridgeview Estates number 3, that's where I live, where maybe you live, and then you'll click there, and then you'll see maybe what lot you have and where your drainage easements are. So one example of sort of interactive mapping. Another example, live zoning map. We have crunched through this. There was a zoning table that kind of links up to this that our last staff member, Andrea, was working on. Again, click on an area that you're interested in, maybe a conventional zoning, you'll be able to find the setbacks, click to specific links in the code or handouts about the code. So anything from setbacks to fencing. The last example here is, maybe you've already seen it, I think we've talked about it a few times, but the live development map. You can see what you folks have reviewed from the planning commission standpoint. Recently approved projects or projects pending. The way it's set up right now, red dots are sites that have yet to be reviewed. Yellow dots are sites that have been reviewed and have yet to begin construction. Green dots are under construction, and black dots are complete in the last 5 years. So you can find kind of records of approval just to make sure, what we talked about at the planning commission last year. Now that this is getting built, I want to make sure we're tracking toward our expectations. So you can click on a link here and get links to the plan, the packet, the slides, and the minutes. For a lot of these sites, some sites are missing certain information. There may not be packets or plans for some sites, but there's usually minutes for the sites that are uploaded here. So just know that some of this stuff is going to become available. All the stuff that was on the memo attached to this part of your agenda tonight, those links are active. They're not really published, but if you have curiosity about any of them or the way they're constructed, feel free to reach out to me. And hopefully it just makes what you do more accessible to both you and to the community at large.
So the map you have on the screen is not available yet?
This one is available
This
on the
one is.
website.
It's posted to our main webpage.
I'll tell you what, I looked for it the other night, I looked all over the place in the website and couldn't find it.
I'll tell you how to do it, and that's part of simplifying the overall website, and we've had some recent conversations about it. But like I said, I will preach that this is way better than it was when I started. I think especially Kendra has done a good job getting it to the place where it is now, but it's still a little tricky. There's still a lot of places to click. It's if you go on this main ribbon, you have to go to the development.
I know.
The development
Picture
there.
that trail down
So,
by.
and the main Walker webpage, you got to slide over on this ribbon in the center, and then there's the development tab. Engineering has done something similar with they have a construction tab somewhere, I thought. There it is, it's the second one. So they're focused more on public infrastructure projects, but we get a little bit of redundancy because they have been so kind as to link right to the development map that I just showed. So if you're curious about construction, you might go to the construction page. If you're curious about private development construction, you go to the development page. So this construction one and the development one, those are posted. There's a lot of other maps in the works that are not yet really posted, but you can reach out to me. I think the plat one will be especially helpful. A lot of just the day-to-day rigmarole of zoning administration is where can I build a pool, fence, or shed? A lot of people have easements that restrict those things. If you as a resident can click around a little bit more, or maybe as a realtor, get to know what the plats allow for without going into our back room and finding the Mylar drawings for old plats. That will hopefully be helpful. So,
You are aware that Lara just changed their website, right?
I am, and we.
Not for the better, I'd say.
Yeah, you have to get a login, and at least it's free.
You do not.
Oh,
There is-
really?
You do not need a login.
Okay.
We discovered that.
Oh, that's good. Well, I made a login, and I had to back up a bunch of maps, but we got to the point where most of Walker's plats are on that map, so. Just a little teaser, if you think of ideas of what else could be mapped, I'd be glad to take them and see if we can run with them, you know, pending the time we have available in the office to noodle around on this stuff. I think I'm finding that it's worth spending some extra time on stuff like this to save time in the long run, even if day-to-day project review gets in the way.
You are a valuable resource. Every time I come here, I'm proud of you.
That's why I'm
This is-
replacing
I love this
myself
stuff.
with,
I love this stuff. The flats and the, put the
You're a lot better than
plaster
Frank.
lines
I
on.
hope
The
he's
other
watching.
go-
I'm just trying to replace myself with maps and clickable stuff.
This is great stuff.
Automated.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I think this tool is great.
Whatever you do, don't put your zoning stuff on the web like Grand Rapids. Just don't do that.
That's a good, so what are the lessons learned there? Why is that? I haven't used it much as a resident, but what's the problem?
My daughter lives in the house I grew up in Grand Rapids, so I was curious, okay, what are the setbacks, and, you know, I've got a single stall garage, they would like 2-stall garage now. It's like, I have no idea where to look, and I spent considerable time, and they've got this form-based stuff, and
Yeah.
just tons of verbiage, and there's not a simple, if you're in this zone, this is the setback, and it's
Yeah.
not very easy to use.
That's the double-edged
In
sword.
my
And
opinion.
that's why I think I hear Frank say and the commissioners say, we're always gonna be a community that you can call and you can come to the counter and ask if things are too complicated. I joke about replacing myself with maps, but we will always be accessible to answer one-off questions like that, because it is
Somebody
complicated.
that answers the phone.
Yep.
I was really surprised today. Somebody forwarded me a voicemail, and a gentleman called and talked to our media person and said, I think I talked to a guy named Tom, and I want to talk, I really, if he's busy, I understand, but can you express to him that I apologize for the way I was when I called and talked to him?
Oh, good.
It's like, whoa.
And usually you're the rude one.
Yeah, that's good. That feels good.
My goal is when they hang up, they may not like the answer, but at least they're not mad. If you have an answer. Oh, do you want my autograph? I do. $5. $5 donated to the pizza fund. You're late because we're doing on. No, I'm late because I wasn't paying attention to the clock. And that funny stuff is going on. Along with the
yeah.
leaking.
Stop that.
All right, we
Say that
got,
again.
got a meeting in 2 weeks now?
Yeah, that's the open house for the rough draft of the master plan. So that's a 5 to 7 open house, and the only thing on the agenda for the 7 o'clock meeting is a recap. So,
Adjournment?
yep. December 4th, we do have another formal site plan review in the works. So back on more of a regular regimen at that point, but November 20th is all master plan.
I saw a date for a joint meeting with DBA. When is that?
Thanks for that reminder. Yeah, that's right. So December 4th, before the regular meeting, there will be a safety training. The police department just want to have a training for PCs, EBA members to, I guess, run through safety protocols for meetings.
Yeah,
This is a
so,
refresh of what we did number of years ago?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know that the mayor has talked with PD, and the plan is that there is going to be an officer present for all the city commission meetings, and they're going to consider our meetings on an ad hoc basis, but they're going to try to be more proactive in having someone present for the purpose of if things get tense on anything we're doing or what have you.
Well, we went, anybody remember when we did that? We had the training over, that was when, anybody else remember that?
I think
We had
so.
an officer come in here and do it like a 15-minute.
No, we actually had training and they said if you're uncomfortable, the chairman just calls, we need a 5-minute adjournment and we all go out the door. Remember that?
They
Well,
did
it's
that
been
when the
long enough
officer
that,
came here, that was part of that discussion.
So
I
Jason,
imagine
you
it will be
predate
something
me, and it's been long enough that I never had that training, so we're about to do it. It's been 4.5 years plus.
I can't remember what triggered it, but it's like, okay, when the open carry came into effect.
That's right.
Yeah, that was
And
done
if
in
somebody
here.
walked in with a rifle, what are we gonna do?
That was in here.
Yeah, it was in
Yeah, it was
here.
in here.
That's when the officer came here and then
Okay.
told us.
That'll be a good thing to have, I think. We could all benefit
Yeah.
from that.
Yep.
Well, the thing just said accepted, it didn't explain it, but I figured that's what it was.
Yeah.
There should be an alert PD button for at least at the chair seat.
Panic button.
Yeah.
Or a trap door.
Well, just like a buzzer over to PD. Trap door.
Well, I thought we had back then, I thought there was a protocol for that,
It's Halloween.
for the chairman. I think that's what it was just time,
I think it was just a
time
giant.
for adjournment.
Yeah.
Yep,
If you're uncomfortable, out the door and then.
I'm betting you're probably right.
Call the guy.
Yep.
Just hopefully not the last one through the door.
All right,
Okay.
Well, it was-
you all set?
Adjournment. Felt like something.